Welcome to this week's special episode of the Ionavation Podcast. I'm Alexander.
And I'm Donald Coolidge.
Earlier in your talk, you mentioned that even though you are a co-founder, you don't necessarily deal with necessarily tech, and your role is to get money for the company. Do you ever feel, or do you ever suffer from imposter syndrome because of that?
Man, that's a tough question right away. So I think there's a little unwrapping of that. As a founder, you have to wear all the hats, and really whatever hat you're asked to wear, right? So it's your job to do what. If you have to take out the garbage, you take out the garbage. You know what? So when I started, I had no coding experience at all. I still have no coding experience, but I've been building tech now for 15 years. So even though I don't, actually write the code, I know how to whiteboard and architect and construct the systems and platforms. In addition to that, a lot of times I'm the one selling what we're building as well, whether it's to customers or investors. So in the first couple companies, I had technical co-founders, and I was more of the non-technical co-founder, pitching the vision and the dream while they built the technology. Now, because I've been building tech so long and I know how it works, even though I don't code, I can still sort of whiteboard and build that piece out. Does that make sense?
It does.
And on the imposter syndrome, yes and no. In the beginning, for sure, especially because not only was I not an engineer, I'd never built a tech company, I'd never worked in a tech company, I was still a student. It was a little bit of can I do this or not? And had to really look in the mirror and say, hey, I can figure this out. And it's really about saying all right, here's what we're trying to do, here's what we need to do step by step, and let's go out and just do each step one at a time, and not worry about the bigger piece of it. And then over time, as you do that more and more, it gets more comfortable. But always, if you're building companies, you're building things, you're gonna have failures. And after a couple of them, you get thick skin on that.
You're used to it.
Also, I guess on that one, if you're raising money, you get investors saying no. No. You get retailers saying no. Customers saying this sucks, this is stupid. Well, it's also the Marine Corps, so I had drill instructors yelling at me all the time. So I guess that helps.
Thick.
Yeah, a little bit.
So you actually mentioned it already, but when you're pitching and getting funding, how do you do it? I know for a lot of students today, they're going to be talking to mentors for their own businesses, and that getting money for businesses is super important.
Yeah.
How do you what's your thought process in pitching to get investment?
So the first thing you need to figure out is, do you need investor money? And is investor money right for you? So not all companies need investor money. If I'm building a craft that I can take some materials and build it myself and then sell it to customers, I can repeat that cycle and not have to raise investor money. If that's not the case, and you there's a capital hurdle to growing the business, you then just have to figure out, how much money do you need? What is that money going to accomplish? And who are the people that are likely to invest that capital into the company? And then there are some other legal things you have to deal with too. But there's ways to mitigate that too. You can ask for family loans, right? There's traditional capital. That's actually one of the things we do a lot of at. I run Vets in Tech New York. It's a national nonprofit. We help vets get integrated into the tech ecosystem. I think there's 40 chapters around the country. We do a lot of entrepreneurship training and figuring out what type of capital is right for what kind of business. So is it an SBA loan? Is it a bank loan? Is it a friends and family type loan? Or is it a scalable tech startup that needs VC money? So in the beginning I had no idea. And there are lots of ways to get capital. Some people have wealthy aunts and uncles, right? And that's one of the first stages. And there's also crowdfunding. Are you familiar with crowdfunding?
No.
So a Kickstarter.
Okay.
Where you can go out and you can film a video and say, here's what my product is, and then people will crowdfund $5 or $10, and it helps you get started.
That's a really interesting subject.
Yeah.
For the purpose of time, I'm gonna move on to my next question, but that just opened a whole bunch of can of worms in my mind.
It's a big topic, yeah.
Moving on to a slightly similar topic. During your talk, you mentioned that you pitch in like layers of like investors. So how do you like categorize the layers? How do you like categorize like people who don't really care, people who kind of care, people who like definitely care?
Yep. So so here's a tactic I like to take, and you can probably read about other people do the same thing. When I'm raising investor capital, usually like angel or venture capital, I'll bucket my investors into 3 categories.
Right.
With the middle layer being the best investor. Like let's say Elon Musk was the best investor.
Oh my God.
He would be in there, right? Let's say maybe I'm building something for sports. Aaron Judge and Kevin Durant would be in there, right? Then the second layer around there is the sort of like they're good investors, but not the Kevin Durants or the Elon Musks. And then you have sort of the outer layer, which are like, if they invest, great, but they're not my like dream investor. And I'll generally pitch the outer layer first, hone my pitch, and then once it gets better, I'll pitch that second layer and gather interest from those good investors, but not the dream ones. And then when my pitch is awesome, I'll go and I'll target those Kevin Durants, the Gary V's, the Elon Musks.
Nice. So you also have like other stores, more traditional stores. That focuses more on like sports cards, Pokemon. Correct?
Do you collect?
I personally don't, but I used to play Pokemon.
The
and
market's
I know
on fire right now.
I know, I'm aware. So what made you decide to go into more of a traditional like business?
By accident. I had built Raz Kings and Posit during COVID, which was a sports fandom platform, which has to do with, it's a marketplace for sports memorabilia and trading cards. And so that was fresh in my mind and interest. When COVID hit, essentially sports cards took off and got really hot. I put together a small group of my friends who I collected with as kids, and I pooled their money up, invested into sports cards as an alternative asset, and then returned them like 2x their money within like 30 days. That was fun, and what was great about that was it's my friends. These are my high school friends who we all collected together. We're nerding out about sports cards again. The market was hot. And then I sort of had this conversation with other friends I collected, like, hey, let's open a store. We opened one, we opened a second one, we opened a third one, and we just grew it. And stores are very traditional. They're not, these stores aren't gonna make me rich, but what's amazing about them is it's something I love. I'm super passionate about. The market's hot, and each one of them has turned into like a vibrant community center.
Nice.
So you have kids, you have families, you have collectors. They're all going in there. They love the environment. They love the atmosphere, and I think that's the best part about it. The fact that we're growing and making money is awesome as well. But it's really nice. I'll go into the store. I'll sit down. I'll see parents I know, parents I met there, families. We like do birthday parties now. We have trade nights. So we're actually important staples of each of those communities, which is like sort of best of the best.
That's great. So my last question to you to wrap up this interview: what advice would you give to upcoming entrepreneurs?
So be a doer, and don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of other people's opinions. Also, don't over invest. So depending on your situation, test the waters, do small things, prove successes, and then let it snowball. And most importantly, just go out there and do it. Don't worry about what anyone else thinks, or if you're gonna, how it's gonna look if you fail, because there's a lot of people that are thinking the same thing that never do it, and then there's a lot of regret later on. Entrepreneurship is chaos. It's hectic. It's stressful. It's also extremely rewarding, personally, professionally, potentially monetarily. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you like being a doer and building things, go out and do it.
All right. Thank you. This has been this week's episode of the Ionavation Podcast. My name is Alexander. Thank you for watching.